picture, the big picture. Now we have another presentation to offer. Another presentation that is about active measuring. Here we can see, well, I did not took some things that existed. I decided to make some measurements for the country that are available with our instruments. And that is the atlas that I discussed and Victor before me. Just for starters, a bit of theory. If we have 2 points, we can make a ping. A ping that gives us the round trip time, the RTT. What is this latency in seconds? This is the sum, the total of latencies with hardware to process the package that is sent and received. That's the delay of transmission of signal, because the light speed is measurable, and the lining up the queue that is generated. If we take D1, D2, D3, we can understand that if we measure it, this RTT continuously, sooner or later we'll find the empty waiting lists, and we will take the minimal RTT between 2 points. There are 2 values, so the equipment delay and the wire delay, transmission delay, wire transmission delay. Yeah, that's it. That's how it looks, the channels, the equipment, and the queues. Waiting. So how the light speed, which is terminal, the correlation, the distance between 2 points and this RTT value that was done is not a new thing, but the most important work was of 2000-2002 from Stanford, where they analyzed it and they discovered that that was a kind of a straight line. That was the RTT was linear, a function of distance. If we look on how this looks from the point of view of transmission, signal transmission, we can see that speed of transmission is more or less constant. So this wire delay should be proportionate to the distance, more or less. So in 2000 it was 6 milliseconds. That was no A6, no A6, no network processors, but even with that, that ancient equipment and imperfect equipment, the D2 was 5.9. In 2019 we can expect much less. The hypothesis is that it goes down to 0, and we will try to prove that later. So if it is so, we have this function RTT and distance, and this is fiber optics. This is where the 2/3 of the light speed in vacuum, that is. So the rule is simple: 100 kilometers, we add 1 millisecond to RTT. 10 milliseconds is 1,000 kilometers for the package travel. That the formulas you can see. Formula. And if we divide one value by the other with the 100, with factor 100, so if it is a straight line, the indicator should be equal to 1. It cannot be less than 1 because we cannot overcome the light speed, but it can be a little bit And that's the indicator that we should measure for all the points that are enclosed, which were included. The coverage map I took let me think about the research. I did it independently. I didn't use any special access, any clearance that I got. No clearance for any top secret documentation. That was RapNet, the library, the usual library. My credit points that Dicta compensated for it. And that was a proof of concept that anyone can do it, having enough credit points. So I needed the team's support, but Victor answers my request in the same way as he answers any community members' requests. So no special arrangement was required for this exercise. As a result, I have about 3,000 lines on Python. I had to add to our library that is used for Atlas, and basically 70 million measurements were done in 1 month. So now the disclaimer here is that the study, the results of the study will not stay the same. Our probes are not in every autonomous system. We have about 200 probes in 2,000 systems, not to mention every prefix, because every prefix can be arranged in a different way. And we should understand that despite the fact that that was during some time, there were some abnormal results, and there could be some non-systemic change and or disruption, and there could be some erratic behavior of certain probes, because some individual probes, because Atlas team are watching the functionalities, but some results may be results of such influxes. And what kind of points did I take? The territories not under the Ukrainian governmental control, and the point is Kryvyi Rog. It's a big city, one of the biggest in Ukraine, but there are no sites that we can identify, neither that nor probes. So there's nothing to measure. Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk are close to that. I call them Dnipro, to not to make have any errors because of the too short distance. Now, for every one out of 10, we took all the probes available. Unfortunately, in some regions there were too few probes, so we had to add something else to make those measurements more representative. And it was point A to point B to point A, but so I scanned actually the geographic regions. I picked up the nodes that were available there with high probability of being located in the United Regions, and I added that to the study, 30 in number, and in the total amount 153 targets. The results were verified. We cut off some unhealthy things, and sound things. Some interesting observations. It's all this side, but some interesting observations. I discovered that there is a considerable share of pings that go, the value of ping, that network unreachable message, and another ping. That means that in the process, and in that very second, the routing was rearranged, and there was no targeted routing. That's this evenly distributed. It's all absolutely even and equally distributed, and it is not clear why so many on the average. That is, I measured the number in Russian, the Russian Federation 10 times less somehow. So some spontaneous rerouting is much quicker with us. And I looked at the minimal RTT with the aggregated unities and median. That's average between the two averages. If you look at this row, this period, the big and the very small and the very big, so the median is our security against abnormally big values that would disturb the arithmetic mean. So median is much safer. Then we have the temperature maps, the isotherm maps, so to speak. And now let's see the RTT inside the city and an autonomous system. There are three pathological cases: Kyiv Star, Volia, and another Volia. Two cases in Kyiv, one case in Kharkiv. When we have inside one autonomous system inside the city, we have the minimal RTT 3.5 seconds. That's pathological, that's abnormal. The minimum and the median. Inside the city of Kyiv, it's 13, the median. That means that before we had smaller values, after that we had bigger values. That's also abnormal. We can see that there are some unhealthy manifestations, but the general picture is all right. If we exclude the autonomous systems and see how it looks inside the city, well, here's the picture. We need more than one probe for that. Clearly, here are the results. Mykolaiv, everything is bad there. Kyiv is perfect, and there are some so-so cities. Let's say that. It's not a good situation, though the average RTT is less than 2 milliseconds. That's perfectly normal. The majority of values are very small. That confirms the hypothesis that the equipment delay is negligible. The median is not more than 25 milliseconds. This is not bad. Also, but this is not the best imaginable picture. Even inside the city, 15 milliseconds inside the city, this is too much in the metropolitan area. And the last two results to discuss the minimum RTT between the intercity, between two cities. This is hardly readable, so let's paint it in different colors. I'll show you different pictures and a different S indicator. So that's S equals 1. Simple, isn't it? But when we have the some geometry, it's the square of 2, 1.4. So when we start wavering, it's different. With the straight line, with the line, linear, it's linear. as a semi-arc. This triangle, it's 2 times worse than a straight line. So 3 for the roots that we use, some bypass, that's 4, the intercity connection. And this is the picture when we go from Lviv to Ivano-Frankivsk via Kyiv. This is 6.6. If we go back, it's not a straight line, the cables, it's 9. So now we can see geometrically, it's visualized how the indicator is related to the cable route. And we can see thermal map. If it is less than 2, we think it's normal. If it's 2 to 3, it's yellow. 3 to 5, it's orange. More than 5, it's red. That's the thermal map. We can see this is the minimum delay. We can see the situation is very pitiful, maybe acceptable. But for Kyiv, Dnipro, Kharkiv, we have enough of green squares. Kyiv is number 1, Lviv is number 2, Kharkiv is number 3, this is number 4. Still, this picture should be much, much greener. And if we have a correlation of the position in this rating and the population rating, we'll see that the bigger the city, the better the situation, which is obvious. And here's what happens when we have the median. The median, there's no green at all. No green at all. That means that on the average, the interface is not optimal between 2 points. Remember, I was demonstrating the JEDA-XP results, and we could see the average for Ukraine, but it was not the optimal traffic. That's the result. I conclude with this. That's the result of my presentation. But look closely. It's not streamlined. It's very low in normality. More pathological median that requires some attention. No correlation because the values are terrible. That's true. And the general conclusion that we have this RAP atlas. This is open. This is available, perfectly available. I never used any special access clearance or opportunities. Anyone can do it. It's all public. Flex is public metrics. You can download and repeat it fully or partially. All the data is readily available. I can give you the ID of my measurements so that you can use them. And there's this instrument. You should use it actively for your studies. Look into the situation. It was measured by me, all right, but it shouldn't be me necessarily. You can do it passively, connecting to the program, so that you can have a reliable picture of what is happening in real life to something at some point of time. And a little bit of speculation As to why this happens, this is the global underfunding of the industry. This subsistence level leads to the situation when, as my friend said, all my childhood was about you still have it. So your head is ugly, but you still have a head. So we have some cable. It's not good, it's not optimal, but we have it, still have it. The price streamline, and remember the pictures that I was demonstrating in my previous presentation. The interconnect change inside Ukraine very quick or too quick. Most probably that's the price streamline, and which is uninterrupted, continuous, and in turn leads to suboptimal traffic. It goes not to the best places, but to the cheapest ones. It's very difficult to do anything about it being alone, but if you decide to do your routing, you should remember that traffic streamline is a very good thing for reliable operations of the system, and the Ukrainian gamers suffer because they shouldn't suffer. And not to mention traders that suffer all the time. No trading is possible. Well, some is possible, but if you want to compete with the marketplace, not with such indicators, never. That's sad, actually. I think then and hope that the picture will change when the big players will come and start consolidation, their consolidation. In the majority of cases, I know some exceptions, but in the majority of cases that leads to the situation when the consolidated operator starts sweeping through the resources and rearranging, streamlining, optimizing the external and internal connectivity. And unless something of the kind happens, I think we'll have problems. I'll follow the dynamics, but I cannot see any other way out, any other way to change this picture, that is. We can think about next steps. I would like to look into specific stories, the traceability, and what can be derived, maybe some interesting effects. Naturally, I'll work on the streamline of this to make it more reliable and readily available, and share it for open source use without any blushes. And in the nearest future, I would like to make similar measurements with all the probes in every European capital, or maybe not just the European ones, but even from Madrid to Moscow, and make similar cross measurements and look on this S indicator and just how optimal, how streamlined it is between the two countries. Let's see what comes out of it. That's for the 5th time, if I remember well. I would like to tell you that we need more probes to make them studies more relevant, more representative, more accurate and interesting for the audience. So please join the virtual, the physical probes, and join, install. That's the acknowledgement. Acknowledgement Emil Avin. I used his instrument. He actually inspired me. Emil Avin and Victor Naumo. I would come to him every week and say, I have this, but it doesn't work as I expected. And he When he had some spare time, he would explain where I misread the combination, why everything was in order. There were some errors, but mostly he could explain. Thanks for that. I'm prepared to answer questions concerning the two presentations, but I'm available for the rest of the day, and I'm accessible on Facebook, by email, on Telegram, and so forth. So don't hesitate. If you have a question, just address me. Alex, remember you were telling us a month ago. Now I'm prepared to come up with a question.
First of all, the most fresh impression I have, there is this wonderful expression, asking forgiveness is worse than the offense. So, yeah, almost always we had this impression as if we were reading not with our eyes, but with some other part of our body, and I needed explanations from Victor. Okay, now my comment. I really got this impression, especially from your second report, that the numbers you got show that the organization of the network in Ukraine is quite star-like. Yeah, Kyiv is the center, and the speed are 13 milliseconds sometimes. Yeah, routing is inexplainable. Sometimes we can look at the trace, most probably. We can look at the trace, and also we should think whether we can distribute those ping values into ping itself and the loading of the device that is used for pings. Well, this is happening over a month, so this may not happen that all the devices are loaded all the time, and if it is so, then the situation is much worse than it may look at the beginning. Yeah, I agree with that. So it's quite interesting if we look at those two tables where we see the minimal numbers first and the median. It seems Kyiv is green with every other city except Mariupol. For other reasons, he's red with everyone but yellow with Mariupol. Yes, indeed. So on the one hand, Kyiv is the worst. I wanted to discuss this separately, but when I look at this big number of orange and red, I realize that everyone is worst here. It does not even make sense to compare these bad situations, and it doesn't make sense to look for something good here. So Mariupol demonstrates some stability, which is the road of kings, right? There is one reason. That's because there is only one pointer. Okay. Alexei, we are here. I'm glad that I saw a similar presentation, another one that you had, and it was published, but I saw it live. And you told that you would be developing this idea. Half a year ago, you were sharing about Russia. Do you see any trends from the work you are doing? Yes. We had a similar presentation for the Russian Federation. I mean, the presentation was different, but the research we did is quite similar. The distance and time relation. So this picture was almost entirely green except for two cities which had some pathology in them. This one was green and yellow, so I'm sharing this with the audience to explain where the question is coming from. So when I was analyzing this yellow-green one, there were some reasons for analysis, and when I made the list of those problematic cities, I realized that I saw the list of the city of Povolzhsky okrug in Russia. So that only region was a problematic one in Russia. With all the rest, everything was okay. So I started to consider that data, and it was quite easy to realize that Kazan is the second city, and there was one more. With the pathological situation, with the pathologic routes going through Moscow, Kazan is talking to Samara through Moscow, and with some other cities through St. Petersburg, which is also quite a popular city for this purpose. There was some development in Russia. I did not make any summary yet on my measurements. I'm not ready to share anything. Anyway, I see this question as a request for this information. We will provide that at the forthcoming event in Moscow. This is why I started this talk from the introduction, that we need to get your feedback. It's still a pilot project. Yeah, that's not only a pilot project. This is the open research. We do not have a single bit of data here that is not available to you. If you are interested in all of this, you can join, or without joining, you can take the same data and do something else with that. That's totally okay. You don't need to be ashamed of that. Thank you, Alexei, for your research. I'm Alexander Savchuk from the Tracom company. I don't even know how we can call this remark, but looking at this matrix, it happens that I know how the magistral network is looking in Ukraine. The worst connection here is between Kherson and Mariupol. Actually, there is an optical line directly connected those 2 points. So this matrix probably shows that the effectiveness of the logical network. Yes, for sure. It shows the optimality of the physical route, which is actually followed by the package. If there is a direct cable that is not used, this shows that the cable does not exist. Or maybe it is not used by many people. Yeah. So the suggestion is, should we include one more factor, the coefficient of the effectiveness of the use of existing infrastructure, including infrastructure inside Kyiv? Yes, but for that we would need to have more sources of information. There are only 2 test points in Kherson and only 1 in Mariupol. That's not enough. And yeah, we would be interested to get your information on physical infrastructure, if you have any. Dmitry, I'm very glad that you have this kind of research. I truly hope that RAIPRCC will be making this for every region you will be doing your event in. Will you publish this on GitHub? Yes, when I publish this on GitHub, I mean, I will publish it when I will stop being ashamed of the quality of code I have there. It's not professional yet, but it's becoming normal. So once I succeed with that, and I'm spending about an hour per day to fix that, once I finish, for sure, I will publish it openly on GitHub. And it's on GitHub already, but it's private for now. So how many test points, how many numbers have you used in this research? So about 200 of test points in Ukraine. We used about 126 of them. So the distribution is unequal. Lots of them in Kyiv, lots of them in Kharkiv, in Odessa, relatively many of them in Dnieper, in Lviv. So you could also include the number of those test points with each of the cities. Yeah, I agree with that. I would also like to request to publish the map of the measurements you made. This is quite a big file, yes, but still, don't you have any space on the internet to publish it? Yeah, that's totally possible, but there were 70 million measurements, so if we divide those by 3, well, we still have quite a big number of digits. So I'm ready to provide that file, and I'm also ready to provide the description so that you will be able to select that.